Well, hello again. Episode 4. Who'd have thought? Charges. We can't move into the many aspects and details of heat networks without first looking at the cost and the charges for the most important people in this process, the heat users. Sounds corny, doesn't it? But they truly are the most important people. Too many times heat networks are discussed as an asset or a design or an efficiency measure. But charges to customers should override all of that by 1,000 to 1. It's like when you see something you like when you're out shopping or at a car showroom. You're browsing away and the salesperson comes across and gives it the full description and the wonders of what it can do and what it should be and so on. But in the air there's that, I like it, but how much does it cost? It's the one conversation probably I've had in my career anyway that's the most emotive and most regular that I have with customers, and quite rightly. So, if I'm connected to a heat network, how much should I pay? Simple question, deserves an answer. In this episode, we'll start to answer that question for those people connected to networks fueled by gas. More on electricity fueled networks in the next episode. However, the principle is exactly the same, really. Put simply, those people connected to a heat network using gas as a fuel for the network should not pay overall per year more than if you had your own gas boiler. Let's start with the basics. When you see a bill from a heat network, it is different in a couple of ways if you compare it to a gas bill. And therefore it is important for everybody to understand and look at what you are paying for and how that is described on the bill. As a simple comparison of the cost pence per kilowatt hour of gas to pence per kilowatt hour of heat is not what you should be comparing. Note that I said the cost per year. That is what really matters after all. How much will I need to pay to keep warm overall in a year? And we do need to get into the detail here, so apologies for that, but without the detail we can't explain this properly, can we? So here we go. So, when the gas bill drops in the letterbox, it will usually show two items: a tariff, or a pence per kilowatt hour of gas that's been used, and a daily standing charge. It's usually billed monthly and shows your kilowatt hours usage of gas for the month and the standing charge multiplied by the number of days in that month. When a bill from a heat network drops in the letterbox, or is emailed to you, or it's on your app or something like that, come on Steve, you're not that old, it too will show two items: a tariff, a pence per kilowatt of heat that has been used, and a daily standing charge. Again, heat networks usually bill monthly and show your kilowatt hours usage of heat for the month and the standing charge multiplied by the number of days in that particular month. So, simple so far and so very similar in every aspect. So what is the difference? Well, there are two main differences really. The first one, and it's often overlooked or misunderstood anyway, is that the gas boiler is not 100% efficient. At best, the technicians tell me they work at 85% or something like that. Older ones, far less than that. Which is to say that to achieve 1,000 kilowatt hours of heat, you'll need to burn 1,180 kilowatt hours of gas, to be very precise. So more gas is used to produce the heat. The second, and probably larger and more influential effect on the comparator, is the difference between what is included in the daily standing charge. On a gas bill, the standing charge only accounts and pays for the upkeep of the national gas network outside of your home. It doesn't really include anything to do with a gas boiler. They're not interested in your gas boiler. They only deliver gas to your home. Therefore, to heat the home, the user has additional costs on top of the actual gas bill to maintain and also eventually replace the gas boiler. The daily standing charge on a heat network bill not only includes for the upkeep of the heat network outside of your home, but also includes all of the maintenance and the replacement of the heat interface unit. Remember that, the HRU? We talked briefly about what that was in the previous episode, but it's essentially the equivalent of what the gas boiler is, the white box on the wall. Therefore, to heat the home, the user will have no additional costs on top of the monthly bill, ever. Literally never. Won't have any cost to maintain the HRU, no cost to install it or to call a service engineer should the need arise. No cost to replace the unit even. It is all paid for within the standing charge of the heat bill, meaning there's no sudden or unexpected costs. So it can be really helpful. But when all those costs are compared, as stated at the top of this episode, you should still absolutely not be paying any more to be connected to a heat network supplied by gas than if you were to be connected to your own gas boiler. So with the methodology out of the way, I'll aim now to talk through a simple comparison on screen. It's by no means an indication of what any individual will pay. I want to get that absolutely out there. This is an example only, because obviously what you pay will depend on your own usage, of course, and so on. So I want to put that out right out. This is an example. But let's get into it. There's no other way of avoiding it. Let's go into the detail right here. So, typically in the UK district heating market, an average usage for heat is around about 3,500. You can see the 3,500 there. Now, using 85% efficiency of gas would mean that you're going to burn 4,118 kilowatt hours of gas. Coming down to what that gas costs, you've obviously got the tariff, and at time of recording, this is a real tariff that's actually taken from my own bill, 6.45 pence, including the VAT, that is, per kilowatt hour of gas. And then there's also a standing charge, of course, that currently I'm paying 32.7 pence a day. So when you add those two things up, you've got £265 worth of gas delivered, and you have £119 worth of standing charge over a year. Totaling those two costs together equals £384.87 in this particular example. When you break that down to actually what you've bought the gas for in terms of heat, the delivered cost of gas works out around about 11p. Okay, so relatively simple understanding there. I hope everybody understands what that is. And it's coloured out in grey for a reason there. So all the delivery of gas is coloured out in grey, so we can compare it equally with the heat network side. But as we just said in the previous section of the video, that's not the end of the costs for gas. So on top of the gas network supply costs, there is a gas boiler maintenance cover that you do get included in the heat network. Now again, these differ all the time, of course, if you go shopping around, but on average, for a annual boiler maintenance cost, that somebody will turn up to your boiler and maintain your boiler without any excess at all, that's around about the £270 mark. On top of that though, you need to accrue some money to replace the gas boiler. And on average, so I'm told, around about 11-12 years is average for replacement. So assuming a cost of about £2,700, that works out about £240-250 a year to do that. So when you account for the gas boiler cover and the accrual of the money that you require to replace the gas boiler, that comes to an average of £513. And you can see that is highlighted in yellow there. Now, of course, what we've got there is the total cost of the gas delivered and also all the cost of the gas maintenance and replacement of the boiler. Adding those two sums together, which is the £384 gas and £513 of maintenance and replacement, that gets to an annual total bill of around about £897 in this example. Using the same colour coding, when you receive a heat network bill, we'll talk through that now. So using 11p as the delivered price of gas, that accounts for £385 a year for 3,500 kilowatt hours of heat, because heat networks and the heat delivered to your HIU is 100% efficient. We add on the heat service charge, so if the service charge from the heat supplier is around about £500, £503 in this example, we get to a total highlighted in green of £888, which is slightly less, more or less 1% less than the equivalent cost of the gas delivered. So to recap, everything in grey is compared with everything in grey here. Everything in yellow is compared to everything in yellow here. And then the final bill and the sum of the total is compared in green here and here. So that is how we need to compare the charges overall to ensure that the value being given by the heat network is true and comparable to the gas network. This is also the methodology that I've set out there. That's the methodology supported by what is known as the heat trust, and will probably be the methodology moving forward into regulation. So the heat trust, who are the heat trust? They are a voluntary, well, they have been a voluntary consumer protection body really that sets a common standard in the quality and the level of customer service expected from heat suppliers, as well as ensuring charges are levied at the rates that are comparable to a gas boiler, just like the way that I've just described there. Heat network developers and installers should be registered with the heat trust really, which means that it is audited by the heat trust, both technically and commercially, to ensure that the scheme has operated efficiently. So in this very short initial video, that's the basics of how most heat networks have been operated and charged in the past 10-15 years or so. Please don't take the numbers as gospel that I've gone through. All networks are different in terms of they operate and how they operate. But the methodology is the most important thing that I hope you've gone away with knowing and understanding today, because this is generally the accepted way to ensure competitiveness to gas. We must move away from that cost of gas, pence per kilowatt hour, to the cost of heat. They're just not comparable whatsoever. The next episode moves this conversation forwards really, and towards the newer lower carbon requirements of heat networks. Most will be fueled not by gas, but by either electricity through heat pumps or from sourcing heat from all the varied areas that we talked about in episode 3, I think it was it 2? And how this influences charges to customers. I'll see you there, but before you do, click the like button to this one if you did like it, and definitely subscribe because it really does help us to keep these things moving. See you soon.